Okay.
Okay, hello everyone. Today we have a few questions on biology and psychology, or maybe only on psychology. I think this is what we need to find out first. And I have put the file with questions in chat, just in case someone find it useful. And I can see some new people, Kirill and Pavel. I don't know if you want, I can also share the links to all the channels we have. I don't know. Maybe are you really new or are you?
No. Well, at least Kirill, I know for sure. Pavel, I haven't met yet, but but I think, yeah.
Hi, I came from Telegram, so I guess I have the links. Thank you.
Perfect. Great.
Okay, great. Okay, so then we can start. And the first question was, I have taken it from the big questions doc. It was in biology section. It is what is the origin of instinct, and is instinct related to the world as neural network? So I thought that if we are talking about instinct, it is biology level because it is about animals. So you wrote, Vitaly, today that you think it is psychology. So
right.
Do you think it is animals already have some basic psychology level, or what did you do?
Well, it's a good question, right? So and the line is not like precisely defined, but I think this is if it's some emergent behavior, something that happens that doesn't happen, like for example, single cell organism, right? Something that happens for more advanced organisms, that then we can kind of make a decision: does it belong to the psychology or biology? At this point, it's not it doesn't matter, but it clearly on a higher level than the level on which we consider things to be alive, living organisms, right? And so we can imagine living organisms that does some learning and tries to learn the environment or survive, but having no instinct, right? So what kind of instincts we are talking about? So like self-preservation instinct, right? So I can easily imagine a living organism that doesn't really pay much attention for self-preservation and is more interested, and it just doesn't have a room for that, right? In whatever learning algorithm he is using. So that's one example. So I wouldn't think that necessarily has to be present. If it doesn't, if something is not present, like in all living organism, it is considered to be a bit higher level, and so I would still put it in a psychology. But again, we discussed many times that there is no clear boundary between them. Okay, so what are the instincts we want to discuss today? So I already mentioned self-preservation, and I really like to hear what other people have to say about that. The other one is sex, right? So our attraction to opposite sex is again an instinct. That is another example. And if we are to think about this hierarchy, if self-preservation is an instinct that is defined by a single organism, regardless of how complex it is, then sexual attraction would be an instinct that is already defined for a small but still group of organisms, right? Not completely social. Well, of course, there are some people who are attracted to everyone, but at least this is the kind of so it's a bigger scale, bigger.
I think maybe attraction is not exactly correct. It's reproduction instinct.
Well, right, as a consequence. So why do you want to be attracted? Why are you sexually attracted to someone? You would say, well, the reason why that happens is because as a result of that, that will lead to reproduction, right?
Reproduction.
Huh?
But reproduction isn't necessarily in the person's mind at the time, though.
Right, exactly. So it's
The
kind of
drive
comes
is like, I see something, I'm going for it.
right.
Just like I'm going for a banana.
That's right, right. But perhaps those who were attracted survived the evolution, right? And those who were not attracted didn't survive evolution because of the reproduction. So it's like
it's kind of a trick
right?
to get you to do it.
Yeah. But again, I mean, if you're thinking about this, I like to always think about Maslow hierarchy when I think about psychology. So safety is at the lowest level, right? And it's like self-preservation. And then you go to the higher and higher level, and then those high and higher level involve your interactions with the environment in a sense of it can be a social environment, or it can be an environment of an opposite sex, and the higher you move in this hierarchy, the more of emergent phenomena, psychological phenomena would emerge. So anyways, with instincts, I think maybe we can divide them into three classes. Maybe there are more classes we should consult with a psychologist, but at least there is one instinct is about you self-preserving, so you're only worried about yourself. The other instinct is about sexual attractions to the opposite sex, or whatever that is, and then the third one maybe the social attractions, right, of wanting to be connected to a group of people, like we're here, right? We are all driven. We have this instinct of connect, and that's a higher level of learning in this multi-level learning paradigm. Establishing those social connections is something that we like, right? And something that presumably decreases the overall loss function, and like allows us as a social group to, and that's again, then we would say, okay, does that belong to the social phenomena or psychological phenomena? I would argue that that's instinct that is closer related to the psychological phenomena, because that allows us as a social system to learn better. So again, instinct is something that really comes to you and controls. You think it would control you without you having control over it, but it is benefits the learning on all those three scales that we discussed: the scale of an individual organism, the scale of the small group of organisms, like a family of two, and or at the scale of your social group that you are interacting with. Are there any other thoughts, maybe questions?
Yeah, I do. You were talking about getting the opinion of a psychologist, so I would be interested in talking or revealing information that Carl Jung's opinion on instinct and in regard to motivating forces of psychic events. And if you like, I could read some of this. It doesn't have to be now, or if we come to that point.
Well, I mean, it's up to you. If you think those psychic events are relevant to instincts, then you should read it now. If there are just some psychic events, then maybe we should talk to Katya.
It'll be fast.
Okay, go ahead.
So the dictionary defines instincts as natural, not such as guides animals' unlearned tendencies. Here, Jung had a broader understanding. Jung defined instinct as the chief motivating forces of psychic events, psychological factors, which operate on two levels: the physical, the ectophysical factors, and the psychic as psychic phenomenon. While we normally think of instincts as physical reactions, thirst, hunger, sex, etc., Jung recognized other non-physical forms, and some of these would not strike us as instincts.
Right.
And he goes into how hunger could develop into greed and lust for to become a trader on Wall Street or a CEO of a company. So in this way, this instinct could get distorted and transformed into psychological or even pathological behavior.
Right. or social behavior, right? That's what I'm saying. So, yeah, but I think this is kind of again in agreement with this multi-level idea that, you know, if you have discovered some phenomenon that useful for learning, instinct of self-preservation, then this kind of phenomenon of having instinct of doing something should be propagated to all other levels above it. And whether it's a small group or a big social group, there will still have to be like, you know, you may call it as a desire to establish connections, or you may call it as a desire to self-preserve social systems, right? So you establish connections such that certain social systems are self-preserved. So that from the level of the social system, those interactions within the system are nothing but algorithms of preserving it. I don't know if that makes sense, but kind of, I don't think it's a very different phenomena at that point. Any other thoughts, ideas?
I think per Richard Dawkins, like caring about yourself and caring about your children or about sex is actually two sides of the same thing, right? You care
that's
about
good.
your gene, which
Right,
you care,
right.
and your children care half of your gene, at least, right? So that's always the other way around. Your gene forces you to care about itself.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, that's another like instinct, right? So not only self-preservation, but again, on a higher level, you want to preserve your kids, right? You want to defend them. That's, you know, an instinct that you would have again that appears on a higher level.
Yeah, and then from genetic perspective, you care about your neighbor, your extended family, maybe your small community, because you share some genes with them, obviously, right?
Well, I don't know if it, because you share some genes. I can easily see you know, a group of people who are a fan of the same club. They are and their club is about to you know, go bankrupt, right? And they will all come together and try to save it. And it is because if they lose it, they will lose you know, the social system that they are part of. And so they're trying to preserve it. And you know, same happens with countries, you know, or small minorities, and that actually it's a general tendency, right, for the minorities to die out. And so as a social system, and perhaps what needs to be done if we want the diversity, and think that
what do you mean minorities are dying out?
Well, it's if you have a social system and then you like, let's break it into parts where one bigger part shares one set of values and the other smaller part shares the other set of values, it's a natural tendency for the smaller group to actually shrink eventually. They would, you know, if you don't put any extra additional effort to preserve whatever the values that the group shared and kind of supported. It's a general tendency. It's like, you know, when in biology you have a bigger organism, it will eat out the smaller organism. It happens on those levels. And so what's the right strategy? Well, you have to decide whether do you want to spend resources for preservation of that smaller community, or do you want to just let it go and die? And there is no like right answer, because I don't think you can like preserve all of the small communities, and some of them will eventually die. And that's actually this beneficial for learning. And that's, you know, this program death. It's a part of it. You don't want to, right. But there has to, but you also want to keep the diversity among the social system. And that's why you have to kind of decide, does it worth putting effort to save this minority group or not? Okay, Victor, you have raised your hand. Go ahead.
Yes, I think that it can be useful to discuss what is not instinctive behavior, what is the opposite of the instinct in our context, and I don't quite understand how to define it. What at many scales, at each scale, what can be described as non-instinctive but learned behavior?
Oh, I see. So I think I kind of distinguish it on the time scales. Instinct is kind of a behavior that was learned and during a long time scale and also used during long time scale, right? It was learned for many generations, and now it proved to be useful, and so you're using it. Now, non-instinctive behavior is something that you kind of just learned yourself. You figured out that scientific methods are useful, right? So it's not an instinct, but you yourself during your education,
the skill to solve differential equations,
the skill, right? Exactly.
For some hundreds of years.
Yes.
So
But it's not in your genes. 100 years is a very tiny time scale. That's.
But what gives you the drive to get the initial interest in wanting to learn how to solve differential equations? Where's that? Maybe this could be called
Sure.
The creative instinct. The
that's
drive.
right. Right. So you're like using all the instincts that you come with you for free. Like, when you're hungry, you eat. When you're aroused, you have sex, whatever. And then you figure out this works pretty well, but maybe I can improve on it. Maybe
instincts is everything which you basically inherited with your connectome.
That's right.
Well, this is against the Pavlov's definition that something which biologists call instincts can also be learned by individual organisms.
Okay,
and from their point of view, it's also an instinct.
Yeah, it's more like reflexes, right? So yeah, I agree. But that's kind of a next thing, right? So you can also learn certain reflexes, and there's no sharp boundary like what should be the time scale. But there is something that learned on a very long time scale, and we all agree to call it instinct. Something that you learn on a short time scales. Pavlov's dog experiment, and then again, it is something that you discovered is useful for you to.
So anything which is embedded in your original connectome,
right,
with which you are born, basically, is an instinct.
Yeah, I would call it as an instinct because kind of there's no way you can get rid of it, right? Even maybe if you keep trying for many generations, now at some point people will stop. I don't know, doing sports because they don't find it's like before. Exercising was very useful because that was the only way for you to survive, right? And now it's kind of less useful. Errol, go ahead.
So I have a survey question for you guys. Would you consider the drive to activity or the drive for creativity to be an instinct?
Good one. It's a high level instinct, but I would call it social. On the social level, it is an instinct because that allows you to establish connections.
But we discussed that ability to recognize beauty is probably an instinct which was developed probably not as with a primary goal, but as a secondary achievement for our learning system. But certainly, it's an instinct in this sense.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and it's useful for that higher level of social systems, right? If you are by yourself, you're creating some art and nobody ever reads it or look at it, maybe you'll be less motivated and maybe this type of instinct will eventually die out. But if it is art that you create and share and connect with other people, then that's kind of your tool. Again, using learning theory, it's your algorithm of how to establish connections and how to make learning better.
Can you remind about this ability to recognize art as instinct? I don't remember what we
didn't call it instinct. We didn't call it instinct. I think we called it just an efficient algorithm, learning algorithm of establishing connections. So we were talking about connecting through art, right?
It doesn't look for me like it comes like embedded, because I don't see it in every individual disability. So how can we link it?
I think it's there in every person, but not every person kind of uses it. More people use it more efficiently. Other people use it less efficiently. There are some people who don't have sex, right? It doesn't mean that they just for whatever reason they decided, or I don't know, that this is not very useful for doing whatever learning and optimization they do.
But there is another point here. I think that it is only about humans that such choices are possible. For animals, I don't think it
I don't
is.
think I don't think
disagree.
it's
I
true.
disagree.
I disagree with this as well. I mean,
I see the behavior of crows, for example. You can see crows will use they can complete multi-stage problem solving and that sort of thing. You know, we have potential creative impulse in birds.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there are those movies of monkeys where one monkey is just poking the other monkey just to have fun, right? Just a joke. I mean, that's kind of that's art, right? You know, joking is art. Comedy is art, and
I think the other thing, I think it's a mistake to say that higher level people have this, and then there's people that just sit on the couch all day and watch TV, and they never have any creative impulse. No, I think it's everything is on a spectrum, just like light is on a spectrum, gravity and what have you. So everybody has a little bit of it, and it lies on a spectrum, and we've got to be careful about saying this person does, this person doesn't.
Yeah, it's like let me just give you a good analogy. I think you have all the tools there, but you just decide to use some tools and not use the others, right? So you have a workshop, there's a whole bunch of tools, and all of them are useful to build a house. But then you decide to use one and not the other. You learn how to use one tool very well, and then that helps you. And then you may have no idea how to use other tools, but they're still there. And so every person who is on the couch and playing computer games all day, we can still, put the person in the environment where, drawing beautiful paintings will be beneficial. And then that person will learn how to do that.
I was saying, sorry, Alexander, just one moment. I was saying that this instinct is an algorithm that is on some carrier like Connectome, recorded on some.
Yeah. It's an algorithm that is there, and then it's your choice to use or not to use. I think so. So it's.
I mean, this is algorithm that is
was already invented. So it was invented way before you were born or your parents were born. It is there. It is recorded. You just have a freedom of using or not using it. And then if everybody stops using this algorithm, eventually it will disappear.
Another question.
Alexander.
My idea is that it can be a different distribution of genes among population, right? Some people may have this gene, some people may not have this gene, just different strategy of survival. Some survive through brute force, some survive through social connections, or right?
That is very true. So maybe there are a minority of population that just doesn't have that recorded anywhere. And it's like a person with disabilities, right? You can be born, and majority of people know how to walk and talk, but then you may have a disability of not being able to do that.
You're talking about anomalies.
I wouldn't call it disability. Yeah, there are many people with daltonism, for example, they are not able to perceive like colorful schemes, right?
Right, exactly.
Because of the genes, but they are still able to survive through millions of years. So it's not.
Absolutely right. So this is kind of not the. It's a good algorithm, but it only gives you incremental change to the loss function that you can get otherwise. There are much more important algorithms that were discovered, like survival, right? Because if you don't know how to do that, or you don't know how to eat, you don't know how to digest food, that will kill you right away. So those you learn very well, and they are kind of
but look, there can be different algorithms how you see food. You may give love to someone who brings you food, for example, instead of feeding yourself or getting something prey yourself, right? There's a very different
do, right? So we don't actually take the food and digest it. We have bacteria inside us that helps us do all the work. So that's done automatically. So we delegate this to other organisms to do this job for us, and that's.
But still, I mean, my idea is that the gene distribution can be very different. That not necessarily all the population, everyone is the population, have some particular abilities. And still, there's a different algorithms of survival, and they all coexist and compete, maybe.
Right. So that happens during this learning. Usually, if one algorithm is really clever and good, then it's a phase transition, and eventually everybody will just follow it. If algorithm is uncertain, like it is not certain what is better, to learn differential equations or to learn how to do sports, right? So maybe then there will be a populations who will try to do sports. There'll be a population that'll try to do differential equation, and maybe in our society, all those algorithms are not very much essential because we're all you can get by without using all of them. I don't know if it's good or bad, but that's true. That is personally true.
Would the ability to reflect on things, would that be an instinct that is only humans have?
Yeah, reflection. That's so that we kind of discussed a second ago. What Victor was saying with the Pavlov's dog, right? You can have a reflection that reflects that you learned. And that is
Pavlov's dog, though. That's not really reflection. That's more just I hear the bell, I'm getting the food. They're not introspective like I'm talking about something a higher function.
Okay, can you give an example?
Let me get back to it.
Right. Yeah. So I think it's all about the time scales. Would be what kind of again we put a boundary. If something is learned over many hundreds of generations, then we may call it, or 1,000 generations, we may call it instinct. If something you learn on a shorter time scale, like differential equations, how to play soccer, I don't know, then I wouldn't call it an instinct. But again, it may be useful for certain to attach yourself to certain social systems, communities, and have and by establishing those connections, become a better learner as a social system. Okay, other Katya? Other comments?
I turned off the sound. I think it is at this point it is linked to the fourth question about deeply learned patterns that on psychology level we call it subconscious. That when subconscious, right? And the question is, does the theory give us any hints on how to change such behavior patterns that are deeply learned?
So let's say you learn something consciously, like how to drive a car. You consciously learn how to drive a car. Then when you're driving for a very long time, at some point you stop paying attention that you drive. It can actually happen subconsciously. Your eyes, your hands, everything moves. You don't even pay attention to this. You can still be solving your differential. So that's a useful thing, right? So you're no longer learning. You already learned, and now store it in some place, and now time to use it. So if maybe we've been driving for millions of years, eventually it would become our instinct. We would just really know right away how to drive without having to learn it in an early age. And that's kind of what happens like with us walking, talking. Again, it's another thing that just it comes very easy for us now because we are not born knowing how to talk, but we acquire the skill easily because we have the tools of being able to learn languages or driving now.
Yeah, right. So I mean, if there are some bad patterns of behavior learned, then that maybe you want to change, but
I wouldn't call it bad.
Huh?
So I think it's one of the other questions that you had in the list. I don't think there are any bad behaviors. There are behaviors that you've learned or the learning system learned in certain environment. And that environment may change. So I don't know, I have my kids go to school, they talk to wrong kids, they learn bad words, they come home and start using them. I tell them, well, it's a bad behavior. It is bad in this environment at home, Was it a bad behavior there? No, because that was the only possible behavior for them to survive in the group where everybody is swearing and using, and so it isn't so bad that they know it. It's actually for them to survive in that environment. But the ability to realize that now you're in a different environment and now maybe you should be using different language. Like, if I talk to people who know physics, I use one type of language, right? If I will be using exactly the same words when we have these discussions, then nobody will understand what I'm talking about. And so that would be bad. You would call it a bad behavior. I would say just not adjusted behavior. And so knowing how to adjust, but I think we are moving to a different question, a separate question.
That is
Maybe
what
we should
I
read
said.
it then. Yeah, so if you want to read it.
I already read the part, but okay, now I will repeat. Can world as neural network theory give us any hints on how to change bad behavior patterns, which are probably the case of models, the results of models probably, that are very well learned on psychological level when subconscious? This is the case when the system is stuck in a deep local minima, isn't it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. But that's again, going back to my kid. I'm not saying that my kid does that, but hypothetical kid that has learned the bad words. He would use them subconsciously, right? He wants to express something, but that just the wrong word comes to his mind, and he uses it. And then he may immediately realize that this is a wrong word to use in this environment. And so he's in the right minima for that environment. Okay. Now, however, what the person needs to understand that the environment isn't just a snapshot of one environment; it's a multitude of environments. There are many environments, and a good learning system, effective and efficient learning system, is the one that can quickly adapt to the environment. Or like, let's take a car. Maybe it's an easy device. So you have a self-driving car that operates very well in the cities, right? So it learned how to do that, and now it has to drive in the countryside, right? So there are different rules, there are different obstacles, and so if you just keep doing the same thing you did before, that would not be useful. So what the car should do, it should kind of get rid of the behavior that it was using in or to things that it was paying attention to in the cities, and then use something else for the countryside. And even if we move it between different cities, the same thing would happen. And we don't have to be a car. If we are a person, right? If I walk in the forest, I have to pay attention to one type of things, or maybe wolves and bears. And then in the city, I have to lions. Yeah, exactly. Right. And those are that should trigger my attention. Now, if I'm in the city, maybe I don't know, things change, but one thing you should watch out for are cars, right? Because they can run over you. Maybe now you should also pay attention to people with guns. I don't know, but
yeah. Okay, right.
That's Katya was saying. Katya, you were talking about things to address bad behavior. It seems.
Yes. Like so then my behavior in the forest would consider being bad if I would do exactly the same thing in the cities, like just going around without looking at the cars because there are no cars in the forest, and that would be considered as a bad behavior.
Right, but there's a difference between your bad behavior in the forest, which is justified, and then the bad behavior of the criminal in the jail that is not justified according to society.
Okay, so good. Let's take a criminal in the jail who is like fighting with everyone.
He's a gang member. He was a former gang member.
He's a gang member. So can he behave differently and still be a member of that gang and still be in that community? Probably not. So he's like in his own environment of a gang where everybody does that. He has to do similar stuff, or otherwise.
Let's say he gets caught though, and now he's in the jail. He's not a gang. Well, he may be a gang member, but he's in jail. He's on the inside. He can't do his gang stuff.
Right.
Then the situation is different.
Yeah. So once you completely isolated, so your situation is like the person, Mowgli grew up in the jungles, and there was one type of behavior, and then you put him in the city, or a gang member. He lived outside, and he was, killing everyone, shooting, or I don't know, doing drugs. And now you put him in a different environment of a cell. Now, it is now the matter of whether he's a good learner, efficient learner or not. Can he quickly readjust to the new environment, right? So apparently dinosaurs were not very good to readjusting to a new environment. And the same, many gang members, they may just be so good in their own environment and unable to readjust to the different environment. And now, how do you actually do that? How do you retrain them?
Right, and it has also not only to do with him, but the teachers that on the inside that are doing
exactly,
so
right.
That's going to influence his ability to come out of his behavior and say, oh, there's another way of life that I could do, and now I'm on the inside, and they're showing me yoga and a garden inside this prison. This is my ideal prison, right? So,
Revel, it's every single parent goes through this. Okay, we have kids. Well, they're not criminals. We don't want to think about them as criminals, but we have kids that go outside to schools and learn how to behave in one type of environment. Then they come home, and that's a different environment. They're not able to actually behave well, and then at home, and there is always conflict between parents and the kids because of that. And only once they learn how to readjust to different environments, once they acquire that skill, if they're good learners, they kind of realize, aha, here is a better behavior, more efficient behavior at home, and a more efficient behavior at school. And maybe even at school, maybe I can find a better environment where I will be learning more and behaving better. And if once they're able to do that, once they grew up through this stage, and of course our point of parents is to help them, to show them that, as you said, that there is another way of behaving which will be more useful to you, right? If you behave a certain way at home, you do your homework, do dishes, whatever is that you're supposed to do, then you'll get what you want. You'll get your screen time, you'll get all the benefits. But they have to learn it. They have to understand that the behavior that was winning behavior there will not be a winning behavior here. And that's hard. That is really hard, because for kids, they used to be in one environment all their lives before they went to school. They don't even know that different environments exist.
Yeah.
Right.
One of the things that when I was working in the jail was that we used a thing called motivational interviewing to try to get the person to determine what their values really were. Do you really want to stay in that gang life? Is that good for you? Is it good for your family? Is it good for that? So you ask them a series of questions so they can do the introspection. They can say, hey, okay, look, maybe there is something better.
Right, but they cannot trust you on that, because there were many people like you.
Why not?
Well, who are you? Right, you're just one of the.
Well, I was a counselor in the jail.
Right, but you're one of the. Well, okay, so they spent time talking to you, but you're just one person, and in their life they've seen many people who lied to them, right? So they were in the gangs, and they kind of feel little trust in people, including you. They don't know what you're going to do with this information. Right. So building the trust is the first thing.
There were a lot more people. There were a lot more people involved. They had their peers in there as well, the other gang people, and some people that weren't gang, and then they had and then the prison guards and the administrators and the other counselors. So there was a big series of people that were influencing one person in a large group format.
Right. Okay, but it's not also only about the number of people. So for kids, we're going back to kids, because I think it's exactly the same problem. All adults are evil for them, right? Because teachers cut them, like, I don't know, smoking, cigarettes, and then they report on them. The parents always make them do the homework. There's like they've subconsciously do not think of the adults as friends, right? Because all the things now, if you reason with them. No. If you reason with them, if you explain them why people do certain things around you, they may change their behavior. So if you reason with your gang person and explain why he ended up in jail, and if he didn't end up in jail, it would be bad for the society. If you really try to reason and kind of create this line of logic, and if he can understand this line of logic, maybe by himself he can convince himself that yes, there is a better way of doing things. Right, but I don't think you can change environment for the person. You can try to reason with a person, and And also there's another issue. Many people do not have critical thinking skills. Most people don't have critical thinking skills because this is not something.
This is true.
We're something we don't pay attention at schools. We pay attention for them to passing exams, but we do not teach them how to critically think, and so they do not know how to do that. And if you can, even if you're completely reasonable with them, you've given them all the facts, they can just filter it and not listen to this. And we see, like with all the conspiracy theories, the same thing happens. They will not listen.
How do you teach critical thinking skills to a fifth grader who's preoccupied with zits and dating and the opposite sex and that kind of thing? How would that be done?
Well, okay, of course it starts with mathematics and logic, right? So if you cannot pass through that, if you just say, I want to teach you, because you want to show where things are exact and pure, there is no opinions. Because one of the arguments people kids would use, are we sure? There's always a second interpretation. There's always two sides of the views, right? So there is only one side and there's another side, always, right? But if you show them that there are problems where the answer is 100% sure, 1 + 1 is 2, you can prove theorems. So once they see how that works, then of course you have a better chance of logically. If there is no logic behind what they do and they don't want to learn logic, then there is no hope, right? They have to figure out and see that.
I would agree with you with the logic. I don't know if learning math is going to correlate that well to critical thinking development.
Well, logic is a part of math.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's a branch of math. So it's like, how much math do you want to learn? Some people want to stop at logic. Others will stop at algebra. Somebody will stop at differential geometry. It's how much you want to learn. But it is there where you acquire your critical thinking skills. And those skills actually are also necessary for the other things that Katya will some point will have us discussing, scientific methods.
But I want to say this one thing though. Critical thinking in one of the critical aspects would be, you could hold two opposing viewpoints and consider both of those, and then ultimately decide on one rather than it's automatically 100% correct. And that would be part of critical thinking, yes? Yeah,
that's probability theory. That's another thing. So people don't understand how to use probability theory. And okay, so logic, critical thinking, probability theory, scientific methods. So there's like long path of learning has to be implemented at the level of the first few grades, so that later on people understand what probabilities mean. They understand what scientific methods means, what it means, critical thinking. Yeah, we are not teaching the kids all those skills, and they either learn it themselves the hard way, or they never acquire those skills. Katya,
do you think they have the intelligence? Would you think they have the intelligence to do that?
Let's get a bit back to instinct and behavior. So this was an explanation of what is bad behavior, and it's behavior that is good for some environment and not suitable for other, and that you should readjust. That's clear. And then about changing this behavior, for example, like bad habits, like smoking. It's related to I think related to some psychological problems. Someone is used to come to ease in such a way, and maybe it was a good behavior in some circumstances where he didn't have any better alternatives. But suppose at some point one understands that it's not a good habit, it's not beneficial, not healthy. But changing such habits is difficult. I think it is related to the fact that it is deep local minima. So that getting out of there requires some efforts. Okay. Sometimes it's difficult to. So the question was if the theory can give us some hints on how to overcome this.
Right. So I think smoking is a good example, because initially you may start smoking just because you want to be belonging to some group, right? You want to be grown up. You want to or you see some, you know, some girl that you like and she also smokes, so we want to be so some different reasons, right, initially drive you, so belonging to something, but eventually it becomes a subconscious thing, right? Eventually smoking becomes your habit. You know, I had a food, I drink coffee, what am I going to do with it? I'm going to smoke a cigarette.
No, but it's all okay. But you have to remember that the ability of your brain to react in a certain way to certain chemicals, it appears it is not some bad habit. Some ways to react to certain molecules appear in the evolution process as neuromodulators or some other things, some things like oxytocin and dopamine reactions.
Yeah.
And then after that, it's just a second. Again, it's like a beauty. Probably it's a secondary thing that our brain reacts in the same way to alcohol, to nicotine. But the basic chemistry itself, it was useful. It passed through natural selection, and probably it is still useful in many ways. But some secondary thing is that you also react to opioids or to alcohol or to nicotine in ways which look for you not beneficial, and which the society thinks that you should control it. But on the other plane, the basic chemistry is the thing which keeps you running, and probably it's the thing which keeps running the society at higher scales. So it's difficult to you can't do it by self-control, probably, but to restrain yourself consciously. But certainly there is no way to make it to heal these addictions in any genetic engineering way. You almost certainly will ruin something which will just make the behavior or the existence of the human being impossible if you correct these mechanics which makes you vulnerable to alcohol or narcotics.
Right. So what you're saying, that maybe it's not such a bad thing that we become so easily addicted to things, and so maybe in the long run,
it's important to understand how it came into
the being. Yeah.
So it can be bad. It's the next thing, but we have to discuss and understand how it appeared in the first place.
Right. In fact, there are theories saying that the reason why our brain developed so much is because, you know, our ancestors, I don't know who they were, actually were exposed to the heavy narcotics of, I don't know, mushrooms or whatever it is. And that, so at that point it was beneficial for learning. So we shouldn't disregard, and we may still think that even narcotics may be beneficial. I know people think that when they smoke marijuana, they become more creative, right? So people say that, and I don't smoke marijuana, so I wouldn't know.
I think you got to be careful. Be careful what you're talking. Mushrooms, maybe marijuana, but if you're talking about addictions to refined sugar, coffee, starches, morphine, fentanyl, crack, you know, these are bad. These are just not going
right. And because some of them are just present, you know, in nature, and others are just artificially created for whatever purpose. And so, right. But again, even with that, there is no evidence suggesting that it may be bad, it may harm you physically and may destroy your body, but at the same time, if it gives you some genius idea, and then, you know, you do that, you write down genius idea, and then you die 1 year later, maybe it's not such a bad thing for the society as a whole. Okay, but I think let me just go back to the smoking thing, and maybe we'll come back. So what I want to say, that original, it is a psychological level or social level. You want to belong to the some group, so you started smoking. You want to be then it becomes a psychological level, but at the same level it goes even to biological level, as Victor said, because there's a certain now flow of chemicals that is kind of keeps you wanting more and more of getting this drug. So if our task is to if we are absolutely confident that it is a bad thing and we want to stop it, then there's no way of doing it without actual physical pain. So I'm the one who stopped smoking, and I know how hard it is, and I just stopped it without any help, and then it took me literally 10 years until I stopped thinking about cigarettes every single day. Okay, so 10 years.
Really?
So I stopped smoking. Then
Wow.
10 years later, there was the first day when I didn't think about cigarette for the entire day.
Did you ever try the Nicorette gum or the patch? Or was that
No. I just, I actually, the last cigarette I smoked, I didn't even know it was going to be the last cigarette. But then I just decided that's it. So it is really, and I didn't even smoke for 10 years at that point, maybe, 5 years or so. So it is getting rid of this habit is harder because it changes something, not on the social level, not on the psychological level, but on the biological and the physical chemical level. And that is always hard to change because that is really, as you say, it's closer to the local minimum. It's really subconscious, very subconscious.
But so socially, the smoking socially, the social role of group forming, it is losing its role. But at the same, society cannot exist without some social rituals which help you to build small groups, so medium-sized groups. And I don't know, things like computer games came into this place, and now young people do not smoke together, but they play games together.
Yeah, they vape. I can tell you, they vape.
They vape, but some of them they less smoke and less vape, but they play games, and it helps them to build this kind of closeness to the sameness of some social group, and
belonging, feeling belong to something, like be part of something. So I think this is a very good point, because if we want to take away smoking or vaping, we want to give back something instead. So people and younger people can still become part of whatever social group they want to be part of. Some people do it through sports, and that's actually a very effective way, because then it's not really harming you. Others become gamers, and that is questionable. You do acquire some unique set of skills as a gamer, but maybe you are harming other things. But yes, you have to give something instead, because if you don't, such people will easily become members of some sects, and that would be really dangerous, right? So if the person doesn't have a purpose, doesn't have a group, a social group where his interests coincide, he will easily join the first that comes around. It doesn't matter what it is, right? So
they also might fall into another addiction. They may pick up something else besides cigarettes.
Anything at all. So every single person. Okay, now we are moving from psychology to social system. How the social systems are constructed, right? So there's something that unites people in a certain social groups, and if we just take away what united them, then you have to give something instead. So if we are taking away drugs, if we are taking away alcohol, what are we giving them instead? And it should also be
I'd like to give an example with the rats. Have you heard of the rat park experiment?
No. What? Okay.
Well, the summary is this. Okay, so they put the rats in the lab with the cocaine-filled solution and the lever, and then the rat would just hit the lever, and it would hit it all day. It would die. It would stop eating and drinking. It would just keep hitting whatever that was in the container, some hard narcotic. But when they took the rat just out of its simple cage, and they made a rat park with all kinds of activities for the rats to do, the rats would ignore the lever.
There we go. That's my point. That's exactly my point. So you should be able to substitute with something that is more interesting. Like for some people, for example, joining clubs, like here in US, they have lots of clubs for high schoolers and middle schoolers that they can join. And some of them are fun, but not all. And so if a kid can find something that they like to do, let's say play soccer, right? Then he will just go and do that, and that will be and he will feel belonging to the sports club. And there is a chess club, there is a math club, but there's still others who are not so good in soccer. They're not so good in chess. They're not so good in math. What are they gonna do? And what they end up doing, they're doing vaping, because that's an easy way for you to become a part of something. And how to actually give them purpose, and that's hard. And I think it's not only for the kids. I mean, think about countries having this problem. Like when the reason like propaganda works so well is because you can easily attach to the ideas that translated by propaganda to yourself and say, yes, that's a good idea. Let's do that. And like, you know, everybody around you agrees with that. And so you feel belonging to the group with whatever idea is being, transmitted. It's again dangerous. So you have to be careful what kind of things unite people. If it's drugs, then it's probably not such a good idea. If it's sports, then it's a lot better.
There are no 100% safe pastimes in this sense. People who are doing sports in the youth, they have some tendency to join some gangs. They cannot learn to do more than exercise their bodies. And
well, actually, I don't think I'll agree with that. If somebody does sports and he's like really best in what he is doing, not like an average, but best, really thrives, then I think he will just continue improving because he wants to become better. If you are doing sports and then you end up seeing that you are really not that good, but you want to stand out, you want to be okay. That comes to the second instinct that we discussed. Like you want to find a partner. How are you going to find a partner if you're just like everybody else? You have to stand out. You have to be something different. When the kid joins a soccer team and he's not so good, and then all of a sudden he can buy a vape and walk around school vaping, that makes him look cool, as he thinks, and that makes him stand out and be different. And so being able to do that is what pushes them in that direction. So just being a part of the group, maybe it's necessary condition, but also being able to always grow as a more and more important member of that group. I think that may be the point I'm trying to make, to stand out, to show that you are different, at least in some respect, than others, and better.
There are many different ways to do it. The color of your hair.
Absolutely. Any one of those work. Any one of those work. But when you run out of ideas of what to do, like
I wish you had seen our school these days. Just come in the building and look around at people. You will be very surprised. Many of them have something in common. They're learning very advanced science, but diversity of clothing, of hair colors, you will be really surprised. It's unlike anything which was at my time or at your time.
It's better that they do that than drugs. Okay, way better. Okay, and one of the reasons why drugs may be popular among kids, because they do not have so many options of how they can stand out, right? So if we provide them with options like dressing, okay, dress differently, hair color, fine. You want to sing, do whatever you want, do, and that's why, like in schools in US, they have so many clubs. But maybe you need even more, right, of those. So yeah, Katya.
Can we try to link it somehow to the theory? I don't know, in terms, or now it looks like we are just having some very general discussion.
That's good. You stopped us, right? So the problem of having bad habits, right? We're discussing bad habits now. We're still discussing bad habits, is because it was a winning strategy.
Maybe not only the bad habits we can link, but anything of what have been told, like they need to be part of some group or whatever.
No. Need to be part of the group is a desire to create an algorithm where you're not learning by yourself, you're learning in the group, social group. So this is algorithmic desire for you to be a more efficient learner. So everybody should do that. That's a win-win situation. Okay, now sometimes those groups are bad from the point of view of a bigger society, and so you have conflict of interest. Gang members between themselves feel fine, but once they are a part of the bigger society, it's not a good idea. That's higher level conflict. There is also lower level conflict. If you're a drug member, gang member, you're doing drugs, you're harming your physical and chemical system, right? And so it is a conflict with a lower level system. Okay, so now we have this desire for a gang member to learn, and he became a member of that social group, and then we decide that it's bad for everything from all other perspectives. It may be good only for this group. So what are we going to do? We got to give that person, this addict, a different person, an easy way to join a different group, right? So and that's what Revel was talking about. So yes, okay, you catch that person, you put this in the jail, but how do you make him want to be part of a different group? And that the same idea that they have in schools should work there. You should give them option of joining other groups.
So what we did,
what
we had in that incarcerated place for youth is we brought in programs like yoga, and we had a little garden outside for them to garden. We brought these things in so they could see, oh, maybe when I get out, I can do more of this kind of thing.
Let me just do one more correction.
Transition within.
I would just make one suggestion for that, a correction to that. So you bring and tell them where they should be. I would start from them. You know, if they are not the ones who come up with
we did motivational interviewing. We did.
All right. So say what? Okay, you want to build the group. Okay, tell us which group do you want to be? Right. We'll give you money. We'll give you resources. We'll ask other prisoners whether they want to join. What is it? Maybe he wants, collecting coins, or maybe he wants drawing.
But you can't do everything. You have limited resources. You can
no. But you can question, you have a survey of everyone. You are the one who decides. You have all the money you want. Tell me where you want to spend it, and then you collect all those piece of information. This is data, and decide. It looks like having investing into some kind of painting class is a good idea. I mean, I saw in the news that someplace in Los Angeles, they now creating a program for prisoners to attend colleges, take classes. That's an excellent idea, right? Now with Zoom, it's so easy to do, right? So just now you're not confined to actually. It's very cheap.
You got to be really careful. You got to be careful with that, because they can also use that to communicate with people on the outside to commit crimes and collaborate with them.
Absolutely. So it has to be supervised in some clever way.
Really supervised.
Yeah. But it's an excellent idea, because it's very cheap now to get education, because all it's sent, you just put computers there. They log on to the computers. They talk to the professor, and professor doesn't even need to know. Maybe doesn't need to know that he's a prisoner. He's just a student attending lectures, and that's it. And he's learning, and then he is taking this knowledge and talks to other prisoners. In fact, I have a few people from Russia who are imprisoned in Russia. They're political prisoners who are reading papers that I write and send letters, not to me, to some other person, and that she forwards this to me and say, well, they have this question, they have that question. So this is similar to what they would do. They're doing in Los Angeles, but of course that goes through mail, and it's much longer. Yeah. So they get my papers, they have some articles or interviews I gave. They look through them, they have the questions, and then send it back to me, and then I reply to them, send it back to them. So it is good. So now a person is completely isolated. He's in prison. He's a political prisoner, but now he has the ability to feel that he's part of that bigger group, right, of people who are learning, what does it mean for the world to be a neural network. Great idea. But it was his choice to become a member of this group. So I think if we give this choice to people who have to transition from one minima to another, rather than enforcing those choices on them, we'll have a much better chance that they will accept it. And again, I'm just looking at my kids. I give my kid a list of clubs that they can join, and they're not excited. When they get excited about joining one of the club, if they already know that one of their friends joined it. So their real purpose is not to be part of that club, but to still be part of that gang. Right, so that they were part of, that they independently developed connections to, and so that's
not just no. I do. As my son, he's not willing very reluctant to join something until he tries. Actually, then he finds maybe
that's
it's like-
that's another thing. That's
Yeah.
another thing, right? That is also very much true. Sometimes you may have a situation, but they have no idea what they want, and actually, maybe most of the time. And the best way for them to see that this is something they like is to have them join clubs. Again, I'll give you another example with my kids. Soccer, right? So my kid played soccer very well, but he didn't want to join a soccer club here. So I said, why don't you do that? Let's try it. Okay, he went there, he talked to kids, he had fun, and now he wants to go there all the time. The same for my daughter. So
it's also about learning, right? As you explore more.
Yep. Because first reaction, every new club is something bad. That's, it's I'm not gonna find my friends there. I'm not gonna like it. I'm not gonna be as good. People already know each other there, and I'll be outsider to that club. I will not belong, and so feeling belonged also important.
I want to make the case though that sometimes compulsion and coercion is necessary, and you can't just, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? And expect it to always happen. And specifically in the city of Portland, where the homeless crisis is just a disaster because we legalized in the state every drug in the universe. People are living in tents, selling fentanyl on the streets, and these people don't have critical thinking skills. They don't have decision-making capacity. They're not educated, and this problem is not going to go away unless there's some kind of compulsion or coercion.
Okay, so now this coincides very well with the learning theory. There are two terms: entropy, that you're trying to decrease, and loss function, right? So that you're trying to decrease. Generally, if you give them all options there are, they will all choose something different, and it will be completely entropic, chaotic state. They'll do drugs because there is no constraint. Do whatever you want, right? Now, what you want to put those constraints because some things didn't work. That if people drink alcohol, that they will their health will become worse and worse. Smoking is not a good idea. So you will kind of put in some constraints, maybe soft constraints, maybe not like we prohibit smoking or drinking, but put high taxes so that they can still try it, but that's not gonna be a very efficient way for them to spend money, and it will be easier for them to spend this money to join some other clubs like sport clubs and doing things. But so I agree. You have to give those options with care and really have some kind of constraints on them. Yeah. Okay, Katya, are we on time?
Does anyone have any more questions about the instinct topic?
I would like to ask the survey here again. Is there an instinct toward the religious impulse? Whether there is God or spirits or not.
But I think it's
why. Go ahead.
Yeah. So sorry, because I thought about this. It's again, you want to belong to a group, right? And
I'm talking about humans. I'm not talking about human beings. I'm talking about a sense of a higher thing, like a neural network or the universe or God or something or karma or what have you.
Okay. So let's take it from two sides. If we're talking about instincts, we cannot view the whole neural network. It's at the level of the individuals, like a psychological level. So on this psychological level, you may ask whether there is something that affects instincts as an algorithm by our interaction with this universal neural network. Let's call it that way. Whether there is some instincts that may be recorded there, not recorded in our genes or something, but recorded someplace there. Sometimes we call this hidden space, and then everybody shares. If there is, would be great. But that comes back to this statement that I made earlier, that it's really very hard to test any such ideas or theories experimentally, right? So if we want to prove that their instincts doesn't come from within us, but comes from this, universal neural network, then to come up with experiments that is you can track statistically and see what the significance of it is, very hard. So I don't know. If such
one of the experiments that might be possible, and there was a Dr. Core in Canada who had developed this God helmet thing, And there was apparently areas of the brain that light up or stimulated when people are having these mystical type experiences. So it seems that, and then, throughout the ages, indigenous people may have used the plants that also done the same thing that they're now doing in the neuroscience lab. So here we have maybe something, hard evidence of this in the brain.
No, this is still local. So those so you're saying that people are experiencing some instincts, and then you see some voltage goes up in some place in the brain. That's a local thing. When you're talking about the instinct being recorded or controlled or correlated with some kind of outside consciousness, that's completely different game. This is a completely different experiment. You want to not only see that there is some neuron gets excited or what, you want to see that this came through the connection with something that outside of you, and those are hard.
And you want to see that non-local connection?
Exactly. So it's only through the non-local connections we would be able to conclude that the instinct or any other psychological phenomenon. So
Well, why can't there be an interface between the local and the non-local at the same time?
Right. Yeah. If there is this interface, we just have to show its existence.
Right.
Can I ask a question?
I bet you are right, but it needs to be shown. Of course, Meryl, go ahead.
Yeah, so I've been dealing with this a little bit because of a brain injury, but what I have, where I am landing, I guess you might say, in my, and I don't call it belief. I think that it's much more than that. I think that consciousness is not dualism, but it's actually panpsychism. And panpsychism means that consciousness is alive and well in the universe. It's everywhere.
Amen.
I think we all agree on this. I think.
Oh, do you? I this is my first time here, so.
Yeah. No. Absolutely. This is kind of what we are trying to say, that everything is conscious. There might be different levels of consciousness. And we've had a whole discussion, and probably Katya will repeat it again because consciousness is such an important subject. But yeah, so the point is, I don't think we are, any one of us here, claiming that consciousness is just something unique to humans or other living organisms. It's everywhere. There's some beautiful plant behind you. I don't know what it is. It is as conscious. It's also conscious, and the bricks behind you are also conscious. But the levels of their consciousness is very, very, very different. Yeah, and we will definitely get to that. I think Rebel's question was mostly.
Actually, we can repeat some part of it now, because the next question is related to this topic. If we are done with instinct, I think we can.
Let me just finish. I want to say two more things, Katya, about instincts, and then we'll be done. So one thing I just want to finish with Rebel's question. So the experimental tests of this importance of non-locality for the phenomena of instinct is very hard to test, but that's certainly interesting. Yeah, and I would still go to religion as let's say religion is also important for people because it gives us a possibility for belonging to a group, right? So you as an adult, you feel lonely. Kids make friends easily, right? Adults don't make friends so easily, so they need to connect somehow. They can connect through science, they can connect through work, they can connect through religions and sects, whatever you want to call it. And so that is part of the social instinct of being creating the social groups that together can learn more efficiently. The problem becomes when one social groups tries to enforce its rules on the other social group. That's when the problem is. Like bigger organisms try to eat out smaller organisms. We are bigger, there are more of us, so we are right.
But excuse me, just before that, the persistence of appearance of religions, cults, is it not exactly this thing which can be called instincts of some high level entity? But can it be statistically tested in some way?
Okay,
and in which sense it is a non-locality here is not the same non-locality which we discussed earlier.
Sure.
It is not certainly it's not non-local effect, but
Yeah.
in what sense you're using? If
Okay.
we try to apply it exact specifically to religion.
Right. So I think this is the third type of instinct that people call social instincts, trying to be part of the group, whether it's religion or sports or anything. Now you can call it as being as being an instinct of this higher level being, which is the social system. However, I do think when Revel was talking about necessity for this non-local connections, for the emergence of instinct to be there, he was talking about something else, because this will happen anyways. We
started with the definition that on the human level, it's just the basic feature of the basic connectome of our brain. Then the question is, what is this tendency to form groups? Is it really is it part of our single individual loss function, or is it loss function of the society?
Very good. So if it is a function of our individual, but because it's recorded in us and our DNA, and then we kind of use it as an efficient algorithm for creating social systems of learning, that's one thing. Okay. Now, however, for the existence of instinct, you also have to get non-local connections. Like, people often say that they experience some non-local connections with other people. I try to call my friend, I pick up the phone, and the phone rings, and who calls me? My friend. Okay. Now, is this a coincidence or it's a real effect? If it's a real effect, then there is something more to this group instinct that goes
the
beyond
definition of coincidence.
Or it's a coincidence.
The definition of the word coincidence. It almost seems like it bespeaks to non-local connections. Coincidence.
If it's coincidence, then
I know what you mean by the colloquial definition of the word, but yes, yeah.
Right. So if it is, if it can be expressed through statistics, then there is nothing non-local there. Two things can be certainly correlated when they're far away. For example, I can have put in the black box 2 apples, 2 green apples, or 2 red apples, then split into 2 boxes and send one box to Mars, the other one to Jupiter, right? And then I don't know which apple is there, black, green or red. But if I open one of them and see it's green, I know for sure that there is a green one in the other box. Does it mean that there is no local communication? No, this is completely local. But because both colors of apples were caused by something that was together long ago. So by non-locality, we mean something else. Meryl, you wanted to
I wanted to go back and you were talking about groups, and I was thinking we go all the way back to what we call caveman, and in order for them to take down a mastodon or to take down some big piece of meat, they had to form a group to do it.
That's right.
And I feel like that's been in our genes, if you will, forever.
I think before.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
so I think like the first multicellular organism when it was formed, right? Okay. Even before the multicellular organism was formed.
You're going way back.
Yeah. So at this point, cells decided that it is actually makes sense to have different roles, to play different roles.
Mm-hmm.
For the societies, one person builds houses, the other one solves differential equations, the third person makes tasty food. But even for cells, that was important. That's how we are formed as an organism, right? Because all our cells, they have different roles. And each one of them individually would not be able to survive, but we are all together. They survive for a very long time, hundreds of years.
Yeah, right. That's good.
So, but anyways, I think this idea of where it's recorded, the instinct, and if it is something that goes beyond being recorded in our genes, if that is true, like some kind of social consciousness that is being recorded in some hidden space to which we have non-local connections, if that's possible, then it would be spectacular. But I don't think we have any evidence for that. Okay, Katya, now
Okay.
floor is
So
yours.
let's
The
pardon?
floor is yours.
Yeah. So let's move to the second. What are the perception and the feeling of presence or being? How we can understand the nature of that in world as a neural network context?
Yeah, isn't it consciousness? Aren't we talking about consciousness again?
Yeah. Let me. Yeah. Let me tell a few more words to explain it in a few more words. I feel so. In the context of the theory, we construct the model of the world around us, and that is what we perceive. Also, we construct the model of self, and that is what we perceive. But for me, still, something is missing in this picture. It is the phenomenon of experiencing or perception itself. In yogic practices, there is an approach on concentrating on feeling of presence or existence or being, and you can notice that what is sometimes called as screen,
What?
on which screen on which any kind of content is appearing, and it feels like well, and in a more contemporary manner, for example, Bernardo Kastrup, in Vedic tradition, it's sometimes related to consciousness, not only in Vedic. In discussions around this topic, often some kind of these things are linked to consciousness. We defined consciousness as learning dynamics, so maybe it is in our terminology closer to universal consciousness, but in this topic we should probably dig deeper. And so in contemporary manner, Bernardo Kastrup promotes idealism, and he says that all the experiences are excitations of this universal field of subjectivity. So I'm trying to describe more or less what is that about. So I feel like there's some notion of this is missing in what we discussed around consciousness and
So let me just
what do you think?
Yeah, mention subjectivity. So in this model, every learning organism is, of course, viewing the universe and environment subjectively, right? It's only your own model. You decided to.
No, sorry. Subjectivity in, I think, in different sense here. Subjectivity is what Bernardo Kastrup uses this term for is some universal field. So there is no my subjectivity and your subjectivity. There is one field of perception in which every content arises.
I would suggest there's both. There's an individual field that interfaces with the universal field, and the boundary is porous.
Okay, well, let me just as this conversation started. So, so in this model, the whole universe is just one neural network, right? So, do you want to call it as objective neural network, a subjective universal field, whatever you want to call it? Give it a name. It's just one neural network, one system that is learning, right? We still discuss, what is its loss function fundamentally, what is a loss function that is emergent on larger scales, when physics enters into the game, biology, social systems, cosmology. That's all a different interesting question to discuss. But now I think when you're talking about now being or presence, you cannot just talk about this humongous neural network. You have to look at the subsystem. So now subsystem, you look at the subsystem and say, all right, what is a subsystem with a limited resources, finite subsystem is able to do? And the first thing is it's not enabled to understand that it's presence or being, because that makes no sense. The most logical thing to do is first to model everything around you, environment. So if you have some resources, do not question who you are, but question, first of all, what is around you. And that's kind of what learning is. You're learning the environment. Now, eventually, and that's what kids do, right? When they're born, the first thing they'll open their eyes, they're not thinking or modeling or, how big they are, do they have 2 legs or 2 arms. They're not doing this counting. I remember a day when my son discovered that he has an ear. He was like, poking his finger, and then he found that he has an ear. And after that, it was like a blast. For the entire day, he was like actually checking that there is a hole in his ear. He didn't know about that before, right? But he found out at some point. And at that point, I think he understood that it's not just modeling the environment, but maybe it's beneficial to model yourself, being. Have an internal model of yourself inside yourself. Again, we discussed it, but we'll repeat it. Why? Because that's beneficial. Because if I don't model myself, I don't model my size, I will keep, falling. I will keep hitting the wall, and that's not going to be good. I will experience actual physical pain, and that's on the emergent level increases the loss function. And so I would interpret that being is something that is being born as a result of this learning dynamics, where you understand that not to better understand an environment, even to better understand an environment, you should start modeling yourself. But again, I mean, I'm not sure that completely satisfies you, because it does have to do with consciousness in a way that, again, we attach consciousness not just to learning, but to efficient learning. And so the baby that doesn't, or the system that doesn't know that modeling itself useful is not very efficient. And eventually the efficiency increases, the connectivity, there's certain spectrum of the neural network that connects neurons that do the modeling, realizes that it is beneficial. And so the efficiency of learning increases consciousness. So as the system becomes more conscious, that develops this being or presence. But I don't think less consciousness have that. Yes, Arrival, go ahead.
No, I think in terms of this defining what the individual is in terms of the network, not necessarily who they are in a social context, but what are we as beings? What is the core of what we do? What is our function? Are we processors? Are we receivers? Processors and transmitters of information? What is it that we are? And
all three. And again, we are a subsystem that is capable to process information. How can it process information? Only if it has incoming connections, that's receiving, and outgoing connections.
Yeah. So it's obvious, but how do you make this important to people? How do you make this relevant to people?
Okay, all right. So sure. So let's say a person wants to benefit to the overall consciousness of this universe, right? Then it has to perform calculations and share it with the universe. So if you are only reading news, browsing the internet, do your stuff, and never create anything that you can transfer back to the universe, you are a very useless generalized node of the neural network. So you are doing whatever you're doing. Maybe for you it's fine, but you are not contributing to the consciousness of the universe, if that's all you do. Now, if you are, however, doing both, you're receiving information, and then you're also giving this knowledge, whatever you discovered, I don't know, some patterns you discovered. You created a painting, or you developed a theory, or you wrote an equation. And if you give it back through whatever connections you have, it can be local, non-local, then you're contributing to the consciousness and to the learning of the universe. That's how I would say it.
Okay.
Meryl, you were raising your hand.
Yeah.
And then you should turn on the microphone too. Yes.
How's that? Okay.
Go ahead.
Well, you were talking about the universe, right? And you were mentioning the neural network, which I've I've been extremely interested in this for years. And so, I guess what we're saying is that because of the neural network, you basically have intelligence in the universe.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Oh, absolutely. But the question is, do we have more intelligence as a sum of our separate intelligence? So if we just all have our own intelligence and then add that up, get some number, and we do not use the fact that effectively use connections between us, if we don't have this social consciousness or cosmological consciousness, if we don't use that, then, well, yeah, we have consciousness, but it's just kind of the sum of us. I'm betting it's more than just the sum of parts.
Yeah, same here.
It's like maybe a good example, again, go to the artificial neural network that does GPT, right?
Yeah.
So it's pretty smart. It does some stuff. I'm not questioning that it has some consciousness. Now, let's look at the parts of that network. Well, each part is not very smart, and if we just look at the consciousness of each of its part, and then add them all of them together, we'll get a very small number. But because of it's connected, it's learning again. If we define consciousness as learning efficiency, but again, I mean, I'm just saying this is a conjecture. Learning efficiency, correlated with consciousness. Then you will see that being a whole is a lot more useful than the sum of parts.
Yeah. Oh, I know what I wanted to say to you in addition to that. They just discovered the fact that filamentary structure in the cosmic web,
Yep.
contains, and this is what we'd said when we were working on this several years ago, the filamentary structure allows the passage of gas and other things to another galaxy.
That's right.
So, and so it's amazing. I mean, it's just
no. If we can show that their consciousness and learning happens on those cosmological scales, I mean that would be for that. All you have to do is actually model this filamentary structure as a neural network with the generalized nodes and blah blah blah, and see that it is actually learning, it developing towards the state of having the right spectra such that it is an efficient learner. So if that can be shown, that's great. And then there we go. We can even try to decipher.
I think I read about it in one of my Caltech journals or something. I forget, but it wasn't very long ago. So I'll go back to it.
Yeah, that's a big thing. Katya, go ahead.
So back to the question, you talked about self-model. That is clear that we discussed a lot.
Yes.
But model of the environment and the self-model as well, it appears in perception. You perceive your the models you build somehow. So the model of self and perception are different things. Do you understand?
Perception is how you get information. And then once you have this information, how you use this information, it's up to you. So you receive information from the outside, and then it's up to the learning system to decide what to do with it. You can come up with a model, or you can just transmit it further, like, and do no calculations with it. So I don't think maybe I'm misunderstanding you.
The perception itself, for me, it's, I don't know if we can call it phenomenon, but I mean something like this, that perception itself is the thing that we have to know somehow. So I perceive the model of whatever, self or environment. So
maybe let's use the word, you construct a model of the environment. You construct the model of the environment because it allows you to predict environment better. And you do whatever algorithms you have and at your disposal to do that, and that's all you do. Now, are you call this as feeling of being? Yeah, I am calling it as feeling of being, because being is processing information from the environment in a such way as building a model of the environment, right? Processing information and learning the environment. So I would call it as being, and that's why I'm connecting it to learning, maybe not to consciousness, because I think consciousness is a continuous parameter. You can have less consciousness and you can have more consciousness. But I think being or feeling being is a discrete thing. It's either you have it or you don't. So maybe a rock doesn't have a sense of being. It still processes information, still learning, it still adjusts to an environment or to its boundary conditions.
I have a question.
Yeah, okay, Revel, go ahead. You wanted to...
Okay, so you say the rock, this piece of tissue doesn't seem to be learning very much for me. Or this cup.
It is. It just did. Hold on. No, cup is less obvious, but the tissue did. It learned how to react to your fingers.
Wow.
It changed its shape.
Okay. All right, you got me.
Okay, so it didn't learn much. It's not a very efficient learner. The other thing it learned your temperature.
Okay, what did the cup learn? Because
your temperature. Your temperature.
Okay.
You touched it. You came into, like, this is the first thing that any two system would learn about each other. What is hotter? Yeah, exactly, because that's the easiest one to learn. Now, also, there's a bunch of photon that being shine on your cup, right? And so those photons change the structure, atomic structure there. Slightly, but they do. And so this interaction with the boundary conditions happens. Now, the question whether you can learn and keep this knowledge for a long time, okay, not just learn and unlearn, right? So, for example, temperature, you heat up the cup with your hands, then you remove your hands, and then very quickly it forgets that temperature.
Okay, but I guess if I come back to the tissue, though, let's say 100 years from now, are there going to be smarter tissues that react better to my hand?
Well, you wouldn't call it a tissue. You wouldn't call it a tissue, right? So tissue is we already have a name for this very basic object that kind of has this basic chemistry made out of certain atoms, molecules, right? Yeah. So we have a name for it. So if you have something, potentially you can create a smart tissue. Let's say, and
you could if it was engineered, sure. But I'm just
So can you imagine you spill a coffee? Yeah, you spill a coffee, and all of a sudden the tissue, walks to you and wipes. goes back. No, it will be learning. I mean, is it efficient learning? Is it did it go through all the phase transitions of becoming a social tissue? No. This tissue doesn't know about the presence of the other tissue. They are not communicating much with each other, right? So that's why they are still at the level of physics, and there is a level of biology, there's a level of psychology, and many more levels. Alexander.
Yeah, thanks. I'm going to speculate a bit. So if learning is causing decrease in entropy, right? Correct me if I'm wrong.
Right.
Can we tie a learning process and sense of being to something that decreases entropy? Or in other words, I can feel like I exist, I'm being, if I'm not increasing my entropy, if I'm alive.
Well, I would say that it decreases entropy in a good state. So not always. It sometimes can increase entropy. So example, with the temperatures, it actually increases it. So it's a sufficiently good system that is a sufficiently good learner. Gravitational systems, right? They're like large system. Instead of gravitational particles spread out through the universe, they cluster. They form black holes. They're trying to decrease entropy. But so it's a tendency of a learning system to the decrease entropy, but there is still this other activation dynamics that always wants to increase it. So it's always the balance between the two. But to your question about being conscious of feeling being, I think feeling conscious it is when you have a good efficiency of learning, when the entropy not only decreases but decreases fast. It's actually the loss function that decreases fast, but as a consequence of that is also the entropy that decreases fast, uncertainty decreases fast. Now, I'm still thinking that, again, I'm sure Katya will correct me and she'll tell me exactly what she's looking for, but I still think that feeling being, as I understood it, and maybe we will have to think about this more and then brainstorm about this. It is about ability modeling yourself, but she disagrees with it, so we'll come back to that.
So my idea is it could be, not denying yours, of course, that it is a feeling of decreasing entropy field, because if you are that, obviously,
but then it's consciousness.
entropy...
No, very good, very good. Yeah, Alexander. And then we're not disagreeing, absolutely. And this is just, I would just call it being conscious. And then, and not only, I will just add to this, not just feeling decreasing entropy, but feeling the rate of decreasing entropy. If it's higher, then it's more conscious object. If it's lower, then it's less conscious object. Yes.
If we take sorry, one more. If we take an artificial neural network, right? So it decreases its entropy during learning, but it has an intake of energy from outside and information.
But it actually, the thing that it gets from outside causes it to increase the entropy, because environment keeps changing. Remember, right? You learn, and it's not just, you're not just looking at one picture, because that you will learn very fast. Environment keeps changing, so that's a constant inflow of the entropy from the outside.
As information.
And information. And the job of the learning system is not just to forget more and more just because there's so much amount of information, but to try to make sense of that information. So trying to make sense, trying to model the environment, is that what the learning system will do. And it's, in a way, it's kind of copying information of the environment outside to internal degrees of freedom. And that's, again, a degrees of the entropy. You have the same information written both outside and inside.
Oh, yeah. And from physical perspective, what's the source of this decrease of entropy? Is it the energy that neural network takes from outside?
Remember, physics is emergent phenomena in this construction. Fundamentally, it's this universal neural network that's learning, and physics is something that approximately correct in certain limits. And in one limit, it would be approximately quantum physics correct. In the other limit, it approximately gravitational physics is correct. In the third limit, there will be thermodynamics is correct. And so it is not the fundamental in this.
So the fundamental neural network doesn't need to any intake of energy or anything else.
No. And the quantity that associated with the energy closely, which is analogous to energy, is the loss function. But it is, as you know, in physics, we learn energy is constant, it doesn't change, conservation of energy. Well, but then you go to the general relativity class and you learn this is no longer true. On the cosmological scales, the system can expand, energy can change. And I told you that the loss function is decreasing when the system is learning. It will increasing when it's forgetting, and it's only in equilibrium that the two kind of things balance each other, and the loss function stays approximately constant, which is analogous in physics, where energy stays approximately constant.
I have a question.
Go ahead. Yeah.
If nobody else has it. So at this point, Vitaly, maybe would you not even consider yourself a physicist, but a neural network theorist, if physics is emergent off of this fundamental thing? And maybe you would even want a different word for it than physics.
Well, I call it neural physics. Neural physics. It's. Let me just give you an analogy. When quantum mechanics, quantum mechanics was discovered, people wouldn't call it. It would be outside of the classical physics. Right. So classical physics doesn't have quantum mechanics. And so people who are discovering it, they see all the contradictions with the classical physics, and they had to come up with a word for it. They could have said, well, let's abandon the word physics and let's call it just quantum. Or a good solution was still, same people study it, so we'll call it the quantum physics, where quantum play the main role. And now later people discovered the field theories. They called, field theories. And then the fields were the main objects there. Again, field theory, physics, field physics. And then now we have a proposal for the string theory again. And the only difference now is what do you consider to be a fundamental object, right? And so I would just call it neural physics, and that's kind of yeah. Okay, Katya, I know that you're not happy with my answer, but let's try it again. I didn't promise that everybody will be happy, right? So that was not one of the. So a little bit of unhappiness is actually healthy. That keeps no, it's true. It keeps you in the critical state. So let's say we all agreed, and okay, well, now we decided that we know everything, right? That's not interesting. We have to be always in this critical state of knowing and not knowing, and keep switching back and forth. Yeah.
Okay, I just I don't really know how to formulate better what I'm trying to say, but maybe I try like this. Individuals are on emergent level, right? So when we say that there is me, there is not really me. There is just some subsystem that we choose to consider at some point of time. So the boundary is
which has one property, usually. The property it's weakly connected with everything else, and strongly connected within. So that's kind of of course I can consider me myself with cup of coffee, right? But the connection of me with this cup is very weak. If I let it go, really my loss function nor the loss function of the cup will not significantly change. Okay. However, if you split me in half, the loss function of both this whole system will decrease, and will increase. If it would decrease, I would split myself in half, but it would substantially. So that's one condition. So when we choose some subsystem, it makes sense to make sure that it's weakly interacting with the environment and strongly interacting within itself.
But anyway, at the next level, we talk about the society. And same
thing. So now we have a society. Now, of course, splitting the society into two doesn't cause such a dramatic change in the loss function, but it causes sudden change. Not as dramatic as splitting a person in half, because my cells already so well collaborating with each other and splitting the load. And for society, it's not yet true.
But
I mean that
some resources, still some resources are very essential for you to learn. And if we split you not from your cup but from your supercomputer, your efficiency as a learner, or just your notebook, your efficiency, it's
absolutely. You're right. Okay. Yeah. So you're right. So if you split me from my notebook, maybe my I'm a theoretical physicist, so I can still use a notebook and a pencil and paper. But yeah, you're right. You can be attached to other objects at the different level in the multi-learning systems, right? So you can have pencil and paper, not even considered live. There's no biological level there. Yet I can be attached to that, because without that I cannot perform.
But their whole economic theory is based on that the property is part of the individual.
Right.
So
I think
that's the system. It's system of systems. It's system of levels, and you cannot. At each level, the principle of boundary is working, but you can build like Russian matryoshka from your systems, and the boundary
I mean,
is
there
working.
is no fixed units like. On one level, there is me. On another level, it's society. On lower level, there are some.
But for any particular question, But for any particular questions, it is useful to define a subsystem, depending on what question you ask. So if you ask,
and now let's get back to what we discussed about. So when we are talking about me modeling myself in particular, and I'm perceiving this model. So, but there is no really me. So, what is perceiving?
What do you mean by there is no really me? What do you mean there is no really me?
What is me?
That's a subsystem, a collection of neurons that is right now trying to confuse everyone.
Katya doesn't think she exists.
A collection of neurons. I know you don't want yourself to be a collection of neurons. Okay, just you want to be more than a collection of neurons, and I get it. But in this model, which may be just a model, right? In physics, I would say you're just a collection of atoms. In string theory, I would tell you you're just a collection of strings. If this neural physics, I say, well, Katya, I'm sorry, but you're just a collection of neurons. Me too. Yes.
Now, yes. So I'm just a collection of something. So what is here to perceive the model?
So Katya, you certainly read about exocortex, Anatoly's works about exocortex. So yes. it's again, you as a collection of wet neurons, of a wet brain, you perceive your own internal model of yourself, but you also perceive the parts of model of yourself which you over years built into your computer. And part of your model of yourself...
I'm talking about... That's right,
but the next thing...
I'm questioning the sentence I perceive, you know? So no, I'm trying to talk about perception.
No, I'm saying you as a wet brain. As a wet brain, you perceive model of yourself, but you perceive not only this part of the model of yourself, which is built inside your brain, you also work with the model of yourself, which you already built outside of your brain. And then next thing, you can start some agent in your computer, which will again have access to this external model, your files, your memories, your photos. And this agent, it becomes part of your exocortex. So in some sense, it again becomes the part of you, which is working outside of your wet brain with model of yourself and communicates to you some results. Like reminds you.
I agree with that, but that's just has nothing to do with the question of perception. That's the answer.
No, perception in the basic sense is the function of your wet brain, the basic neural network from which you started.
I don't believe that. No, that the perception is the function of the brain. No, it can be like this.
No, I don't think it has to do with your brain, but certainly a collection of fundamental neurons. And as we discussed, maybe there is something that we haven't discussed. Maybe there's, in addition to this three-dimensional, collection of neurons, there are those hidden neurons that haven't joined our three-dimensional space, to which you are connected, whose computational resources you use for your calculations, and that whole thing together, you with your collection of brain, your environment, 3D environment, and that hidden environment. This is what you are,
this is yes, this is closer to what I mean. So, but I think that going this way, we will come to the conclusion that this is a universal field, that the perception is not mine or yours, or so this is some.
No. There's a universal, not field, the universal neural network, right? In this idea, not a field, the neural network. It has its own computations, but you can always ask its part of this neural network. What are the computations that you do? What is the model that you have? Okay, and that is your perception of the part of this neural network.
No, I agree with Katya that probably it will be better, simpler, not call anything you or me, but just name what you are talking about. You are talking about brain, you are talking about your computer, you are talking about some undefined but probably existing neurons, a collection of neurons in the hidden space. Yeah. So, and they're interacting, and I don't know, for me it's just easier to call this brain me, because that's how I perceive. But you can easily not to use me, but just talk about distributed model, and just describe the parts about which you, to some degree of certainty, know that they are running these kinds of model. You can be certain about your brain, you can be certain about your computer, you can be certain about your peripheral neural system that it's also participating in these calculations. You can make some hypotheses about hidden space. So there are many possible probable candidates for these calculating modulus, which are together running very interconnected, but probably distributed model on behalf of a being. So,
well, there's another layer to this, right? So you can also be a Boltzmann brain, where all of the things that you would call perception are identical to what you have now, yet the environment and the even maybe a hidden space are completely different, not what you perceive it to be. So you think you are right now sitting next to a computer having this conversation, yet you are actually floating in the space, and in the next, you just were created a split second ago, and in the next split second you will disappear. Okay, so if we allow to all such configurations which are consistent of what you perceive, then whatever is left, whatever is you're not changing, is the SEB network that we'll call you. Okay. So there's lots of things I can change in your environment and you wouldn't notice for a split second, right? And that is that because there is so much freedom to change without you noticing, you is small, is much smaller subnetwork. However, if we increase the time scale and say, I want to be you for 1 hour, for 1 day, for 100 years, then all of a sudden it becomes closer and closer to not just, it becomes harder and harder to separate you from the rest. And you have to consider everything together. Yeah, Revel.
Yeah, so in the time it took me to raise my hand here, supposedly several million cells have died in my body and have been born, right?
Right.
So this is, and I didn't even notice. What part of us then is unchanging? What would you say is the unchanging part?
Right. So it depends on the time scale, right? So the longer you wait, the more things will change. In you, in the hidden space, in the 3D space, it will keep changing. So if you ask me a question about split second, then nothing changed. Maybe like Planck time, nothing changed. Planck time, like really tiny time. If you consider something for 10 years or 100 years, now all of your molecules were replaced, right? And so it's no longer you in this sense yet. Okay. But yeah, however, in the sense of having memories, it is still you. But that memories you have, even if we observe you for a split second, even if you are Boltzmann brain, if we just appeared out of nothing and then came into nothing, it's still you for that split second.
Okay, I think that if Vitaly thinks I've tried to confuse everyone, I hope
which is
I
good.
managed.
You did a good job.
And, it was very nice, Katya.
Yeah. No, Katya, you did a great job. It's very important to be in this critical states of knowing and unknowing, because if we know everything, it becomes boring, and then what there is to learn, right? And I think you do a good job. You did a good job, yeah.
Okay, so we can declare it a success, and our time is over. And at this point, we can finalize, I think.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.